Okay, sweet, dude. Well, Brock, welcome to the show, man. I'm super stoked to have you on. Um,
Thanks, bro.
so yeah, for those of you that don't know, Broc Hill, he's in the wealth management space, if I'm not mistaken on that. And we met back in like 2012 at a football camp, which is crazy that we haven't talked in that long.
USU football camp, dude. Those were the days. Like
Yeah.
there was some moments there that changed my life. So that was a long time ago. And then you went on a mission,
Yeah.
right? I went on a mission. I mean, that was wild. But yeah, totally.
Yeah. Where did you go?
2012. I went to Calgary, Canada.
Calgary. Dude, that's where I wanted to go. That's so funny. I went to
Why would you want to go to
Dude,
Calgary,
so
bro?
I was weird. So I went to Argentina, but when I like when you fill out the mission papers, I was like, okay, I don't and again, this is me being just dumb and obsessive, but I was like, okay, I don't want to lose weight because I want to keep my size for like football. And I'm like, okay, so I don't want to go somewhere hot because then I'm gonna walk around in the hot sun, I'm gonna lose a ton of weight. And so I was like, okay, I don't want to leave the country. I want to go somewhere decently cold. So if you send me out of the country, I put this all on my paper. I was like, if you send me out of the country,
Yep.
send me to Canada. And then they sent me to Argentina. I'm like, you guys didn't even read my paper. I don't think. It's kind of funny.
Do you know what's funny is I remember talking to you at McDonald's when we were at the USU. We went to McDonald's in the back of my truck. Do you remember that?
Yeah, dude, that's so funny that yeah, that's crazy.
I had that ghetto um like bench in the back that had seat belts, but the actual seat wasn't even connected to the bed of the truck. And we drove like idiots. We had like 12 of us in there. I remember you telling me I want to go somewhere cold, and you said Canada. And I remember opening my papers, bro, and I remember going, oh, that's that one dude that was on the USU football squad with me wanted to go here. I'm like, where in the hell is Canada? I had no idea, bro. I had no clue where Canada was. Did you know where Argentina was?
No, I mean, I knew it was like South America, but I was like, I didn't know where. I got called to Buenos Aires. It's the capital, and yeah, I was clueless,
Yep.
dude. Totally clueless. That's cool that you have that memory, dude. I literally that's a really good memory that you have. That's a
Yeah.
very detailed event that I feel like it's probably pretty memorable. But yeah, dude. So you go. We obviously have like this football background, right? This podcast, obviously, I do door to door. I like to say door to door sales is what I do. It's not who I am. It's just a part of.
Hmm.
It's a vehicle that I use currently. That's my biggest lever, right? It's my biggest lever right now for income. But talk to me about like your sports background and how that kind of led you into door to door sales starting off.
Yeah, bro. Sports background, very simple. Played baseball since I was 3 years old, starting with t-ball, and went up through the chain and had so much fun with baseball. That was my number one. And just loved the swag and the aura of baseball, like quite honestly. And then mom let me play football when I took piano lessons in eighth grade, so I got to start football in ninth grade because
Mm.
she said I was going to get CET. And
That's funny.
which, let's be real, man, she was probably right.
Yeah.
Especially for guys like you that were banging heads way too hard. Um,
Oh gosh.
and then so I lived that journey, and man, football was special. It was the first time that I had an outlet to be able to do something so creatively for myself that mom and dad didn't understand. And it was life changing for me. It was like that first paradigm real shift because mom and dad had control over most of my baseball, right? Like they were funding it, they were traveling to every game, they were yelling on every play. They were there 3 to 18 years old. Um, Other than my dad being deployed or something with military, there was really no other reason why they wouldn't be there. I transitioned, into the larger high school, and then I got some opportunities to play on like what was it called again? The all state team. Is that what that
Oh
was called back in the day?
yeah, for football. Yeah, I
Yes.
believe so.
So got to do the baseball and the football all state thing. I was like, wow, this couldn't get any better. And then started talking to Walter Tuafia and Frank Melee, right? Right as I'm coming into high school, because I was like, oh, I've got some decent size. I'm taking 3 scoops of Jack 3D. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I couldn't feel my body anyway, so it was cool. So I had a good experience there. Why did it have such a crazy transition into door to door? Well, quite honestly, what happened for me was I wrote coach at Utah State, and I was also writing University of Utah and Utah Valley University coach for baseball. And mom was like, baseball all the way. You're going to get head problems. And so writing those experiences, mom and dad was telling me, hey, things are tough at home. And but we're doing good and we're living vicariously through you on your mission. And that was always hard, a little bit of pressure there, you know what I mean? And I remember one day about a year into the mission, it was so clear and so distinct. It was, you got to go and learn how to create the legacy for the family. And I was like, what does that mean? And the answer was pretty dang clear. It's like you're done with sports. And that was just my journey. And through that, and then it hit me at the year one. I wrote off coaches and said, I'm going to focus on a mission. And I'm going to focus on networking. In my mind, the word networking, it wasn't translating networking, but just meet people because I was with some of the most affluent people in Canada. This is this is right when, dude, the transition was happening from the Cold Stone pipeline that was going from Edmonton down to like Texas, and Barack Obama had just killed it. And so all of these families, all these LDS families, non-LDS families that were oil tycoons died. Like I'm telling you, Stevens Ave, 17th Ave in Calgary, the two hottest streets, nightlife, dead. Ghost towns like COVID.
Wow.
And I remember being like, whoa, if something can shift that drastically, I couldn't even street contact, dude. We didn't knock a whole lot, but we were street contacting. I remember that transition and being like, I've got to set myself up so well that the families that live in these $10 million homes on a private lake, that are going through it now, I can't be in that position. So I was like, what do I do? I thought about insurance. I thought about all these things. Well, I get home from the mission to answer your question. Sorry, I'm being long-winded here.
Oh,
And what happened was I was just kind of scooped up by a good friend of mine named Kyle. He's like, hey, we're going to go and meet for this opportunity at in Logan for Vivint for door-to-door sales. And at this point, I had already made my decision. I was going to go and work in Alaska on a fishing rig, and I was going to skin the fish for 30 grand. You've heard that, right? Like you knew
no,
about it,
no,
right?
I've never heard of that. That's cool though.
Oh, dude, it was like a big journey for a lot of the Tremonton boys. That's where I grew up,
Wow. Okay.
and so, so going skinning fish, catching fish on a boat for 14 hours a day.
Wow.
But then he was like, I think you have the skill. And I met one man named Cody Babel, and he said, if you're good at sports and you're competitive, this is the perfect arena for you.
Yeah.
And I remember being like, I think I'm one of the most competitive people to a fault where I lose days of actually thought because of how competitive and jealous in nature I was as a young man, like as a young individual. And it worked. And that was the first journey leading in. But sports were such a big piece because I was learning team, right? I was learning how to be authentic within, because you kind of, like you said, you're like, I do door to door, but I'm not door to door. It's not who I am, but it's what I do. It's a vehicle. I started to see that really early, but it was the principles of team. It was the principles of really grit, because it gets hot out in Utah, dude. Like you got those pads on, it's 115. You're like, there's not an ounce of water on this freaking grass. And every time I fall, my ass gets ripped up by the the dirt and the grass. And
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is gritty, man. Well, then you hit Texas. That was my first summer market.
Mm.
And I remember being like, this is so much awful, so much more worse. This is so hot.
Yeah.
I'm sweaty and gross, and I'm trying to get into these families' homes. So it helped me so tremendously.
That's huge, dude. And yeah. So going back to what you said, I feel like right now I'm kind of in this middle phase of like, okay, this was really my second summer that I just did, but I'm going out for my third in just a few weeks.
Cool. Okay.
But
Congrats.
my biggest goal right now is just for me to have produce and have just a massive summer. Last year was awesome, changed my life, made great chunk of money, got a house. It was awesome. But yeah, that's kind of my biggest goal right now, and then also kind of
It's
recruiting a
awesome.
little bit. But that's one thing that I do focus on trying to get athletes because they just understand that grit part of life. Like even because like for me, I don't know about you, dude. I never had a job like growing up. I didn't work. I was solely focused on football. It's all I cared about. right?
You were
It's like
good. You were really good at
I was
football.
okay, but it's like it was like college NFL and that's it. There's no plan B because it like what
Yeah.
Will Smith says, like if you don't if you have a plan B, it distracts from plan A. That was kind of my mentality, right?
Yeah.
Looking back at it, I think I should have had a little bit different mentality, but yeah, dude. And so that was one thing that I actually really struggled with when I graduated with the whole identity crisis of like because football really was me, like that was me, you know, and that was hard to separate myself from that identity, super hard, and I feel like that's one of the biggest lessons I've learned probably the past 4 or 5 years is to not envelop your identity in like what you do, but more in your character and who you are, and that's it. That's been pretty game changing to me because that's just something that I wasn't doing for the longest portion of my life. Um,
That's powerful. That's powerful.
yeah, man. But yeah, with door to door, and this is kind of my thoughts with it is because I'd been in tech sales, I'd been in these different sales opportunities, and the biggest thing for me that kind of changed my life was 100% accountability for my income because there's no you don't just clock in and you get a guaranteed paycheck for doing nothing, right? So that was one thing. But then also like being alone with myself, like that was something that I'd never done that before. I'd always been on like a team, which we are on a team, right? You're on a team and you're competing, but you're on the doors by yourself talking to strangers. And if you could, I always tell people like if you could learn that skill, like you could do anything else in life because it's such a difficult thing to do. Like I even some of my closest my dad, my family, like I think about some people that I look up to and they couldn't even go do it. And it's just like but if you can, just such a massive skill, and I'm sure that's bled into everything that you're doing now with your career. But yeah, talk to me
Everything,
about
dude.
that. Like, so you were in door to door. How many years did you do it for?
I did four official summers,
Okay.
full summers. I did my time there, and then but I really was active in the in-betweeners, right? I remember getting sold first that, hey, this is a summer gig, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is not just a summer gig. This is a full-time gig if you want to do it right. Unless you're really talented and really, let's just say ADHD, and you're really able to be like involved and authentically present on those doors, it was a struggle. But for me, it was like, okay, I saw every opportunity for I saw everything as the opportunity to work in the off season. So Bakersfield was my place. Victorville was my place. And so we would load up the boys in the off season and we would go to these counties with, you know, thousands of acres of fruit farms and drive through them to get to the next city because they were all plantation towns pretty much. And so that was the 4 and 4, the off seasons and the 4 regular seasons
Wow.
with door to door. And how did, yeah, dude, and it was a journey. I did Beaumont, Texas, my first year, Fort Worth my second, which Fort Worth was my favorite. Lived right on Hewlin by TCU, and that was the year that I actually brought my wife out to market. Sorry, Fort Worth. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And then I brought my wife out to market at Fort Worth, and then I did Temple, Texas, and Texarkana, Texas.
Wow.
And that recruiting, the process was so big. How it helped me transition into the next journey was really, it was such a blessing financially that me and my wife were able to create savings. We were able to make real estate investments. And I honestly, dude, I just had some good stewards in my circle that were buying stuff, not suggesting or giving me investment advice, but they were doing it. So I was like, well, I'm so competitive. If they're doing it, I'm doing it because there's no way that I can get left behind,
Yeah.
right? That was my mentality all the time, and it's okay. It was the right season for me, but later on we learned there's really not any competition besides with yourself in a lot of ways, and that's the best. That's the most peaceful place to live within the competition realm, right? But transitioning, I had the opportunity to just 2019, if you recall, I was with Vivint, and we had the liquidity event with Blackstone,
Yeah.
and so all of my mentors, you've got Casey Ba, Jeff Mendez, Cody
Yeah.
Babel, who are really my homies, and helping me get through the journey and giving me, solid, you got this, you can do it. It is hard. You got this next summer. And the value was as I was investing. And so when I had left, I had been getting asked questions from a lot of my guys or a lot of friends that had saw me purchase real estate or something. So I'm like, guys, it's not hard. It's quite honestly, it's not rocket science. You bring 0 to 5% down, you live in the house for a year, and then you just lease it as a rental asset because after a year you're good on your primary. That's all you need to do. You just house hack it. And it just kept stacking. And then really what it evolved into, and I'll stop, is that I had the opportunity to get involved with something called syndications, where I was able to pull friends and family groups together and ask them for their capital to put together these venture capital investments, first starting in food and beverage. So that
Really?
was kind of the journey and the transition. Yep.
So you would, that was kind of like your, did you invest in food and beverage companies before you got into wealth management stuff, or you just
No, dude. No, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was just luckily, thank God, I was just a good steward to the people that I was. I was like, I'm not losing relationships. And I've got these guys that are kind of coaching me through
yeah,
this, the first two, but they were sharks. Let's just be honest. That's one of the principles I will make sure to issue. They were so expensive to consult me for like an hour of consulting per month
yeah,
that now what I know, I saw that they were actually unabundant individuals. They were very scarce.
yeah,
A- And but no, I had no idea, bro. I had this guy come in, and I was at Utah State as well, just a little bit of detail. And Sawyer Hemsley had just launched Crumble 2 blocks from the university.
wow,
And my wife was in class with him, in his class that he was developing. And I was like, that is crazy. So I ran into this guy who had been syndicating like store 4 and 5 and 6. And he's like, yeah, dude, we're going to do another store. I'm like, okay, let's go. And that's where it really started. And Crumble was the best thing for the first part of my journey. It was so good because
really.
it was really good until it wasn't good,
Until,
if you know what I mean.
yeah, dude, it's cookies are such an interesting market because yeah, we opened a Twisted Sugar in Georgia, and this was like 2022, I think, or 2023. Um,
Wow.
but yeah, dude, what was your experience like? Do you still own the crumbles? Okay,
Nope, don't have those anymore, which is good. Did other cookie franchises that some ended up being very poor, because I do believe that there's some stuff there between a fad and also
yeah,
consciousness behind health with
yeah,
individuals. Like you look at the data, I'm good friends with a lot of the swig guys,
hmm,
and data shows like people will take in their sugar or calories through caffeine,
yes,
and because it's simple and it's cleaner and quicker versus actually digesting the sugar and fat and butter.
yeah,
And I'm serious, dude. I saw this wave of like, like, whoa, this is the coolest thing since sliced bread. If you're anybody or you want to be somebody, you're buying crumble or twisted sugar
yes.
cookies to
That's
the
what we had.
party.
Yeah, Twisted Sugar. Yeah,
So I'm saying, and so then it was like, wait, I don't feel good after I eat a fourth of a cookie.
yeah,
I'm like, I feel like absolute dog shit. So I'm like, well, there might be something going on here. And that was the first time I recognized the pattern. It was 2 years into me actually doing capital markets
wow,
till 2021 that I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore.
wow. So yeah, dude. So are you? I'm trying to think. Are you connected with or familiar with Michael McHenry?
I don't know, Michael.
Okay, I figured you would be, but he's a guy that he has a lot of. I think he owns a lot of restaurants, and he's really good at branding with these restaurants. Sunday's
Yep.
Best. He started that up.
Oh,
So
yes.
the
Yes. I know who you're
Brunch Me
talking
Hard,
about.
dude. Yeah. So I what I we wanted to get into the whole Twisted Sugar thing when I kind of I kind of saw what he was doing, and it got me like really
Yes.
stoked because I was like, I love cooking, right? We were so backtrack. We
Hmm.
were gonna actually open up a beignet shop. That was our whole plan. We're gonna we I put a down
Wow.
payment on like a food truck. It never went through, which sucked. Lost money there. And then we were trying to get some real estate around like Farmington area. So freaking expensive. Like didn't even make sense to do it. And I'm like beignet. We're gonna do beignets and bacon. It's gonna be called the Benny Bay House. It was awesome, right? But it just didn't end up working out. So we went with the Twisted Sugar thing because my wife, she actually trained the franchises when they'd open up. And so like during my off
Mm.
season of football, I go help her train, and I'm like, okay, this is kind of a simple concept, like we could totally do this. And so that's why we went with that. But yeah, at the end of the day, it did not end up being very good at all. And so, but yeah, dude, that's an interesting. What do you feel like is a great industry to be investing in right now?
And then full disclosure, it's not investment advice,
That's
right?
fine. That's all
Just
good.
over over the screen, right?
Yeah,
Like read my eyes out here. But the truth in the matter is, I think it's relative. It depends.
yeah,
I I believe that the best form of stewardship you can accomplish early on with any capital that you have accumulated is absolutely in something that gives you monthly or quarterly cash flow at a fairly fair rate. And here's my opinion and reason why. When I got into venture capital, right, when you're doing VC and you're doing food and bev, you're locking up people's money for 3 to 5 years, and you're hoping that in year one or at the end of the fifth quarter of the business, you're producing some sort of dividend,
yeah,
right? Because there's the ramp up, as you know, and that just is a long time for first time investors that honestly have never heard of alternatives, that have only played in mutual ETFs or like individual stocks.
mm,
And you're like, okay, you're just being patient. You're just being patient, like client. So I actually, just a quick story. I had a good friend of mine. He moved from Miami to my neighborhood in Providence, Utah, like 7 or 8 houses down. And he said, dude, he hit me up on IG. He said, hey, I love airplanes. I hear you have an airplane. I like investments. I heard you're an investment guy. You should come over and let's just chat. Honestly, very strange, very abundant. I thought there was a catch. But I'm like, hey, babe, I was telling my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna go over to this dude's house. I go over and I could tell there was something there. Like you just kind of know. Your gut's like, oh man, here's a journey. And be prepared. Be aware, but also be real that you feel something's
yeah,
there. And so I had met this my partner Britt, who's actually my partner now, and he had brought up to me private debt. He said, "Hey, I've been an RIA over in Miami for a few years. I was running I think it was $165 million in a private wealth firm, an RIA, and I've built these great relationships, but the RIA just shut down. So I think I'm going to build a private debt fund." And I'm like, what the heck is private debt? He's like, I believe that the US infrastructure on lending is going to come to a slow and a halt in like 2 or 3 years. I'm like, bro, it's the banking industry. Like, are we going to compete with banks? He's like, yeah, it's a hedge fund for the banks. And I'm like, this isn't exciting. This isn't shiny, exciting, or
this isn't
my
exciting. This
brand.
isn't sexy. Yeah,
And so he's like, it doesn't need to be. He
yeah,
says, big people and real people don't want shiny and sexy, bro. And I'm like, "Ugh, okay, I'll take your word for it. Teach me what private lending is, teach me the process, and I will help bring in investors." Well, lo and behold, we had such a good relationship that we formalized this partnership with Providence Lending Fund, where and this is my answer, I think for the younger generation of people that are learning to maximize cash management and cash distribution and tax strategy, private debt is gold. And private debt, just to be clear, you saw BlackRock, they allocated 30% of their real estate assets right on the cusp of Q4 last year. They reallocated it to private debt. And by the way, it's like 400 plus $billion.
jeez,
And it was to the same designation that we were lending, which is hard money lending. So what I would suggest is something that's quick and precise and also collateralized, insured in a way to where if you lend out your money, you're guaranteed to get something back if there's a fall.
yeah,
Let's just be real, for every VC deal, it's like 1 out of 10 actually wins.
yeah,
Where in debt, you're collateralized, to the wazoo, so that if something does happen, you have that fallback. And so that's what I recommend,
yeah.
is something that gives you those lessons.
That's huge, dude. Yeah, that's probably so. I'm not even close to coming into like investing yet. We're just trying to get a big nest egg. That's kind of my goal right now. But that is one thing
Cool.
that I feel like I have learned in the past year. Like, because what I sell pest control, right? And pest control is not sexy at all. And that's what when
Hmm.
I'm talking to these guys that I'm recruiting, they're like, well, I could also go sell this, this, and this. And it's like, Yeah, you can sell anything. You can be good at selling anything, right? But yeah, the I guess the cool thing about what I've seen like with pest control is it's a pretty dang reliable industry, right? It's tried and
Yes.
true. I mean, look at the Vivint guys. Like they started all in pest control. Todd Peterson,
Hmm.
he had a
Hmm.
bunch of Terminix branches. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's pretty cool just to see like the different things that most people probably don't even think about because it's not a sexy industry, but it's very reliable, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I mean, look what the Idaho Utah boys did with the unsexy industries over the last. I don't remember what year Todd started out, and it was like Idaho, right?
Yeah,
Um, I don't know what year that was, but I mean, look what transitioned to 2019. I mean,
yeah,
a very unsexy, very lucrative, but it was the journey and the grind.
yeah.
Completely agree, dude.
That's so crazy. Well, dude, so how do you so getting you're into wealth management now. I was just kind of doing some stalking on you on the Instagram and stuff, but I see you're kind of connected with like Kafusi brothers and stuff. Like how are you
Yeah,
guys even connected? Do you guys work together? Or are you just partners or what?
yeah, great question. So originally, transitioning the story so it comes to a clasp, it's I had the opportunity to be an allocator for these families. I was bringing them venture capital investments, then I started bringing them private debt, and that started to grow. Well, at that time, what was so unique was these investors were coming to me, bro, and they were saying, "Okay, if I give you this $50,000 check, how am I taxed on it?" And I was thinking, like, you've got to have a C-suite. Like, you've got to have a CFO that's telling you that a $50,000 check on it, on a K1 isn't going to hardly disrupt you at all, especially since it's VC. There's no really, big growth until we sell this thing. And it just hit me. I'm like, why do I keep getting question after question about tax? And then I did a little survey and I sent it out to about 1,000 individuals that I had known or I had helped or were prospective. And they said, I need a new CPA.
That's funny.
And the survey was really simple. Do you need a new CPA and do you need a tax estate attorney? And dude, I'm telling you, my grouping, like when you go shoot guns and you get the grouping size because your scope's styled. Look at that.
You're getting all the emojis going out, dude.
I've got to figure that
That's
out,
funny.
but I don't know what to do with my hands right now, so I'll just keep them
You're
down.
good.
But yeah, that. So going through that process and seeing the opportunity to really solve a tax problem, I basically sent out an invite and I said, hey, I'm going to start doing advanced tax and estate planning, and this was under the company called Cash Capital Partners. And Corbin Kafusi was just getting done with the XFL, and I had been networking with Bronson Kafusi, who was at Green Bay at the time, or just leaving Green Bay. He was there with he was with the era of Aaron Rodgers and Jordan
Yeah.
Love, so a pretty fun little era for him. Well, as he was transitioning out, me and Bronson did a VC deal, but Corbin was leaving the XFL. He was in Tennessee, I believe. And I said, dude, I'd love any support and help. So Corb started jumping on marketing on cash capital stuff as we were building this tax and estate firm. And Bronson was just leaving the league and he was working for Harris Investment Group out of Provo. Great firm. Those guys are killers. Like, as far as a well-connected community and a great steward for real estate, oil, and gas investments, Harris Investment is my number one. It's who we use at our firm. And really, we started putting our heads together. And Bronze was basically sharing with me about all the problems that family offices in America that he was dealing with that were his young men's leaders, his friends, his mentors from that Provo community. And I'm like, is it really this big of a problem? And I was learning, I was
Sorry,
digesting, I
just to
had
cut you off super
CPAs.
quick. When you're saying he was seeing a problem, what was the problem exactly?
The problem is that nobody was actually getting their tax liabilities figured before Q4. And they were running rampant. These are $1 billion families. These are $100 million families. These are $10 million families that are running rampant in December 21st. And they have zero tax strategy, dude. They have some like depreciation they could use that's left over. But obviously depreciation kind of has a long tail. You use it up front as much as you can and it kind of long tails. That was the problem. And Bronson was like, there's not enough investments in the ecosystem to even help solve the tax problem. Guy sells the business December 31st. Bro, he's in a tough spot. right? He's got 1 day to make an investment and set out and trip his taxable event.
Yeah.
So Bronze was doing this with the oil and gas because these oil and gas investments year one were having 250% depreciation,
Interesting.
right? $100,000, you're getting $250,000 in depreciation losses against your income. So Bronze was like, I think this is a pinky nail of the problem. I think that there's kind of a telephone game going on. And that's when I recognized. I said, okay, this is like this. I remember being 9 years old, seeing the cute girl to my right and saying the word blue. But there was 10 other kids on the other side of her. And I was making sure that the cute girl I whispered to wasn't whispering too close to the cute guy that was next to her. As I watched that word evolve, it turned out to be the word green at the end. It's the same thing in the financial industry we found, dude.
Yeah.
Was that you have a family office, which is nothing more than a family holding company that is the most tax efficient structure in America. And really, a family office is nothing more than a family investment company with a family office management company, and they transfer profit interest, which is like what Donald Trump and really the goats of the financial industry have used underneath, underneath our brow is before we were born. I can just give you some detail. In 2017, there were 5,000 family offices, and then there was this thing called the Lender Bagel trial. You can
Wait,
look it up
5,000 in
where
like the
this
US or what?
in the U.S. 5,000 total
That's
LLCs structured as a family
really,
office.
that's crazy.
Very
Yeah.
little, very little, and well, at least comparison to the amount of millionaires that were at least in the United
Oh, yeah.
States. 2017, this family gets hammered by the U.S. government, and they said, "Hey, you're committing tax fraud." Well, they came to play. They brought their best attorney, and that attorney went and won this lender bagel trial for them, basically making it so us as, let's just be real, very small fish in a very large arena could even go and play the same game because they confirmed it. So now there's no suit against anyone running these family offices. Me and Bronson and Corbin collided.
Mm.
And I said, hey, I've got this tax and estate firm. Bronson, you've got these beautiful relationships and
Man,
you've
you're
got
good.
these. I feel like
This is awesome.
you're doing this to me.
It's like a there's like a show going on here. For the people that
It is
can't,
the
they probably
show,
can't
bro.
even
It's
see this on the audio, but there's you got freaking fireworks going on everywhere and everything behind him. It's great.
exactly. No, no, and the real truth is I remember Bronson one day saying, dude, you're gonna be an MFO. And I remember feeling the weight of him sharing that with me. And that's a multifamily office, is what that is. It's a
Oh,
shared resource pool of
I thought it
finance,
was a mother
you
freaking
know,
OG
writ.
or something. I didn't know what.
You're gonna be an MFO. No, no, I wish he was telling me that because I wasn't that cool back then. He was just saying, you're going to help a lot of people run their
Yeah,
finance. And I remember thinking, that's gonna be heavy. And this was right when my little boy was starting to walk and talk. And I was like, dude, I don't want to be a babysitter to private equity forever
yeah,
because it's heavy. Like it's dealing with the deaths, it's dealing with the wins, it's dealing with the really bad trips that people, come into with money, etc.
yeah,
Lawsuits. It's what that was. And I remember going, I think we're going to do it. And so what we did is we structured the company called My Family Office Partner, where we are an outsourced advisory firm for single family offices. We create and manage ongoing single family offices. But the key is we decided early on, and then I have a question for you. Key was early on, Mason, was we decided that stewardship didn't revolve around an assets under management model. And that was, dude, that was like a gift. That was the most interesting thing we ever heard from just our guts. Really, it's something was telling us, don't charge AUM, don't charge assets under management, because here's what was really in the background. Some gift that was being given by the universe was we started recognizing that RIAs and financial advisors make decisions through lenses based on the amount of money that they capture from an
yeah,
individual. Not all of them. That's a very general
yeah,
statement, right? But I have to say, if a guy is holding someone's wealth at $5 million in a Schwab account, and a guy like me gets involved, and I'm saying, look, dude, you've paid way too much in tax. You paid a few $1 million in tax. That's not acceptable. That's not good stewardship. or you just didn't have help. So what that's going to require is maybe some investments to offset your taxable income. But what happens? Where does that money have to come from? It has to come from the nest egg. It has to come from the RIA that was being managed in money. If I take $1 million out of that account with the RIA, that's 1% at $1 million. That's 10, whatever it is, 10,000 bucks, 100,000 bucks to be able to take away from his firm.
Mm.
And so I started realizing that stewardship was not involved in assets under management fees. It can be, but I think true stewardship is on a flat fee that you go and show them how much value you can create
Yeah.
without their
Value
money.
created. That's huge, dude. And yeah, I think it's fascinating to me that you're telling me this, like that there's people that make this much money and don't know what to do with it. Like don't know how to invest it and stuff. That's crazy to me.
Well, you know the stat, dude. You would have, if you would have, you know, gone to the next level, CFL, NFL, XFL, it's not the National Football League. It's not for long, right? Every Tuesday, someone is in that facility. Two to three dudes are working to beat you out of your position.
Yeah.
Very few guys are guaranteed. Your first 3 rounds, those are healthy guys. They've got good deals. They were bought. But the other guys are fighting for their lives. It's gladiators. And then the other statistic is what? 78% of the league loses their money 3 years after leaving the
It's
league.
wild.
So that's a lot of money, bro. But it's not like the blue collar billionaires that I was blessed to be able to help early on in tax planning. It was more of like dude, life is happening so fast. It's the same
Hmm.
principle. Someone doesn't make $100 million on a land purchase and all of a sudden pick up the energy to be able to facilitate that money. Same as a league player. They don't have, they don't necessarily always have the stewardship or have the energy to facilitate that level of
Yeah.
currency. They spend it. They don't get leverage on it. They don't make the right investments. They don't get the right life policies. And quite honestly, that's why it dwindles away.
Yeah. Dude, that's crazy. Well, honestly, when I start making the big bucks, I'm gonna be talking to you because this is like huge stuff. And I just think like yeah, it's just so important. And it's just like stuff I don't get why they don't teach this as like regular curriculum in school. Like why is this not like I just got done with my taxes yesterday, right? First time I ever did taxes as like an S corp, and I'm just like, why the
I
frick did I
see.
not learn this in school? Like this is the most complicated. It's like well, it's like complicated, and then once he's done with it, I'm like that's it. Like why is it like this mystical? And they use all these big words, and I'm just like yeah, it's just fascinating to me that it's not. It should be
Can I?
mainstream talk rather than like this
It should be
complex mystic thing.
a freaking man, brother. And I'm telling you, it is about to become. And here's 2 reasons why it's about to become mainstream talk. Is number one, there's enough billionaires in our ecosystem that are true seekers willing to give light to the next generation because they know what they struggled through is not necessary any longer. Number two, they've realized that the financial industry, including tax filers and CPAs, is the Wild West. You cannot contest that. It is the Wild West. There's no questions. Because here's the deal. Any billionaire, any millionaire, any guy who's making good money like I was in door to door my first year, almost 6 figures, and I was mind blown.
Yeah,
But the key is when you're a tax filer, and you have to churn and burn like a hamster wheel through 3,000 tax filings, you have 45 minutes per filing to get all of your data and then get it done because he has 6 other appointments after you,
yeah,
Mason. And so quite honestly, the educational system screwed up our financial schema because it taught these tax filers in school and these number crunchers to just freaking churn and burn. And that's really the gap, dude. Is it's not rocket science, like you said. It needs to be mainstream content. And quite honestly, it's becoming that with AI and with everything. You can go and figure out how to do a great advanced tax strategy
yeah.
just with Chat
I
GPT.
literally yeah. I was like I'm filling out this tax stuff and I'm asking like ChatGPT like how do I write off like my gas mileage? How do I do all this? It's just like telling me all these different formulas and stuff. And but yeah, dude, it's so cool what you're doing and how you're. I love you know I I love what you guys are the content you're putting out, and honestly think like one of the biggest things that kind of helped kind of change the way that I was thinking in terms of like levers to pull, right? When starting off and trying to generate income and stuff is like Alex Hormozzi's content. That's a pretty good example of like he just puts out free stuff that most people would charge like thousands of dollars an hour. You know, like his book,
Yes.
super awesome book, and has great things in there when it comes to like content creation, sales, marketing, and that's just like one lever. But then like with you, like you could be the Hormozzi of investing, dude. You could be like the Hormozzi of wealth management. So yeah,
Yeah.
dude, it's like
Yeah.
because that stuff needs to be out there. I don't see it anywhere. Maybe I'm not searching enough, but I almost never see it.
There and here's the key, bro. You're spot on. Hormozy was my first journey on a true value add content creator. I mean, I think we all he kind of was our guy. It was first like Ed Milet, and I was kind of like, okay, Ed's pretty good, and he's got great relationships. But then I started doing more research on what he actually kind of accomplished, and I'm like, he had really good relationships. And then I met Alex, and actually, funny enough, Mason, you'll like this. My one of my best friends in door to door, it was our last year in door to door. He was running ads for Hormozy for gym launch in his apartment while I was out selling. And I knew
Really?
it cognizantly.
Wow.
Yeah, he was running the gym launch funnel, the click funnel.
Jeez, that's crazy.
And yeah, yeah,
I might need to talk to
so he
that
was
guy.
doing that in his apartment. Yeah, he's great. He doesn't do that anymore. He runs blockchain over in Puerto Rico.
Wow.
But what was unique, dude, was I think that there's a constant with every one of these truth seekers and value adders. They give it up front instead of the bait and switch.
Yeah.
And there's very few people like this. Like I would say, Hormozy's he's a dog, dude. He gives it to you raw and real. Huberman, right? They're truth
Yeah.
seekers. Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan. There's this brand and aura of like, dude, there's only abundance, and that's the key.
Because the reality is, dude,
So
that's kind of something that I've noticed is honestly like they give this awesome value, and the people that are actually executors are going to execute on it. But like someone who's not, they're just not. It's just goes right over their head because they probably just don't. They're too scared to even take action. But it's like, but yeah, like the answers are honestly they're there. You just gotta find the people like that, like you, like Hormozy, all that kind of stuff. But
can I ask you a
yeah,
question? So let me ask you this. How do you feel like door to door? What principles do you have to envelop or actually attach to your person in order for door to door to be a long-term, sustainable, abundant ecosystem?
so I think this is kind of a hard thing to answer. So I just went to you heard of the sales therapist? Yeah,
Yes.
so I went to his one of his I don't know what you'd even call it, like the mastermind thing. It was only like 2 hours long.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but there's obviously everybody there, 99% of guys are door to door guys. And I was just
Yeah.
kind of like looking around, and his whole concept is like the mental health part of door to door because it's a grind, right? It's really hard to get out of your head and process your emotions when you're getting rejected every day and all these things. It's staying positive, high vibes, all that kind of stuff, right? You understand that. Um,
Yeah.
but with that sort of environment, I think it creates kind of a cutthroat ish mentality of like, these are my recruits, this is my team, this is my company. I don't want to associate with this other company because I don't want my recruits to go with them. Da da da. And it's just like this. It's just kind of the nature of the industry, I think. But in my opinion, and I'm kind of new to it, obviously, but I'm not new to teams and leadership and all that kind of stuff and sports backgrounds. And the one thing about me is you were kind of talking about competitive natures, right? With your sports background, how it made you more competitive. I honestly am not very competitive. I'm not very motivated by, so like if we do like an incentive, right? Like, hey, if you get this many sales today, we're gonna get you a GoPro, we're gonna get you whatever, a trip to Bali. And I'm
Yep.
like,
That was
it
me. That was
yeah,
me.
yeah. So like, which is so cool. I think that's great. I'm much more intrinsically motivated by like what kind of a dude are you gonna be? What kind of a man are you gonna be? And And it's more so like I'm motivated by the person I want to become rather than like a thing I want to get, if that makes sense. And so, and
Yes.
I think if you think of your self development in that way of like, okay, so I want to have $1 million in my bank account in 2 years, right? It's like, okay, well, who would I need to be in order to do that, in order to accomplish that? And it's like, okay, I would need to be doing X, Y, Z. I need to be make sure I'm on the doors longer than anybody else. I'm investing in a couple segues so they don't die on me, right? I'm always in front of people. I'm not knocking on doors with no cars in the driveway. Like little teeny little things that are part of my character and who I am that will help me. I need to be fit. I need to eat well, right? I need to be a good dad, faithful
Yep.
to my wife, all these different things. And it's like, I think that's, if you're focused on the character of who you want to be and self development, that's in any industry. I think you can have success. That's what I believe. I think it's always going to be abundant if you're focusing on your development and understanding that it's not like I don't even think the economy works that way. I think that's like a myth, like the whole scarcity of like, oh well, if I have more, he has less. It's like no, dude. Like we can both have way more than you think if we just
That's right.
are open and we share and
Yep.
we work together. It's like there's just yeah, dude. There's so much more abundance I think than people actually think, and the scarcity mindset is what
Well,
holds people back in any industry.
you're spot on, bro. And I would issue as well that I was intrinsically motivated. There was not a piece of me that was trying to win the t-shirt because that was my true authentic belief. It was because I was having to compete with my buddy Alec, who is one of my best friends, and my buddy, and my managers, Riley Rawlings, and I was just like out there, and he would check in on me, and it would give me the next, the next puff of gas to get through it. But it was never exciting to me. And you mentioned a really good point, Mason. It's like there are those ecosystems. And when you get to the highest tier of involvement in business, like some of these things are so large and some of these people are so abundant that they do handshakes on million and billion-dollar deals because it's the speed of trust. I will say my complete gratitude to the door-to-door industry is number one, the work ethic it gave me. Because I was the guy that wouldn't call my wife. I think I called my wife when we were talking about this the other night. I called her maybe a dozen times over 3 summers on the doors. I never listened to music out to area. The only time I listened to music was back from area. And that was just something I was told you'd be better at sales if you didn't listen to music. Well, slowly, I just will be transparent with you. I was starting to become Bucky. If you remember Bucky from the movie Cold War with Captain America, his best
Oh
friend,
yeah, yeah,
and you know how they recite those words out of that special book and he
yeah,
becomes like this insane
yeah,
killer?
yeah.
Bro, I'm telling you, there's no other way to display that from the second I hit market. I was breathing, I was gagging, I was trying to keep it together before I got out of that car. And quite honestly, it was such a beautiful lesson to learn, but it was truly the thing that taught me that abundance was around the circles you facilitated. It had nothing to do with the industry. It had everything to do. And quite honestly, the other piece of this I'll share is I left the door-to-door industry because of a lack of abundance and because of a lack of scarcity with my leaders. Some of them, the big ones, like the big dogs, like I mentioned earlier, Casey Baugh, Jeff Mendez, Cody Babel, they were on their way out too. They had built a beautiful career. They were making good money. They were making retirement money because they had paid the piper. Me, on the other hand, with the lower end leaders, it became such an easy decision to take my guys and to take my shares and to take my value and really just be like, hey, this is a great breaking point, which thank God it happened the way it did. And everything is happening for the journey. The only other thought I had just by you mentioning this, Mason, was I think it's like you said, it's you choosing the journey. And like Jordan Peterson says, it's like you choose the journey that has the hardest story. You reach the dragon because you know there's the gold. And when you find the dragon, you've either got to find out, just like in Harry Potter, do you shake the bells to get past the three-headed dog? Or do you have the ability to be able to tame the dragon? right? Which I think often comes in form of ego, which that was the one thing I did not understand in door to door was my ego, bro. I mean, I was absolutely roped up in negative energy that was not abundant because of those experiences I just shared.
Yeah, that's massive. Yeah, the ego part is, and that's kind of I mean, at least for me, like on the doors, it can be like a daily battle of just keeping my ego at bay, understanding that I've never arrived, right? I've always got to put in the work, like no matter what. And it's probably like that in every industry. It's hard not to get complacent when things are just going good, because that's when you really gotta
Yeah.
sometimes like push down on the gas and keep going. Um, but dude, so you obviously have transitioned. You've gotten into the wealth management space. How have you managed to, like, you have two boys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, how have you managed to kind of balance the dad life with like entrepreneurship and everything, and having like a growth mindset, which I know you have.
My answer would be different if you if you asked me this question 7 weeks ago. And the truth is there's a lot of grace that I've had to give myself. Number one, because when you serve a community of people that you have a deep relationship of love and trust with, and you fight evil through a nonprofit organization as a mechanism to bolster everything you do, the why becomes so strong within business that it becomes so addicting sometimes that you forget about the family. And I see that in a lot of industries with a lot of men and women. And notice how I said men and women, because I know some freaking killer women that will run the world, absolutely dominate the men in capital markets, private equity, door to door, you name it. Because the women are the really talented. Let's be
Yeah.
real. If they can run kids and a house and also manage a high performing husband, you better bet your ass they're more talented
Yeah.
than we are. But on a side note of that is how have I seen how have I seen that opportunity really transist? And I went through seasons. I went through the journey of, oh my goodness. Like last night, Mason, I'll just tell you, me and my wife, we were up at 12 o'clock. We just talk. We sit on the porch and we look at the stars. It was really nice in Hebrew. It was like 60 degrees. And I said, hey, we've got to slow down with our 5-year-old. He is so intentional. He is so soft. He is so tender. And we are absolutely crushing life. And we're being good parents, but I think we got to slow down. And so my goal is today, after 5 o'clock, I'm done. From 5 to 8, when those boys go down, I am full gas, smacking the hockey puck. We got this hockey arena in the basement. I will smack the hockey puck 100 miles an hour at their head because that's what they want, dude.
Yeah.
They want these little rubber pucks to go flying. How have I managed it, dude? It's been in seasons. The reason why I mentioned, 7 weeks ago to today, the busiest moment of my life has been the last 7 weeks. Not only did I choose to travel for 5 weeks straight and also be building $1 billion company, but but then I had to realize, dude, your biggest role and mission in life is to teach those boys how to be men. And so I don't have a good answer, bro, but all I can say is the present is the present. As soon as you get intentional about wherever you are, be where your feet are at. That's what they taught me in baseball. As soon as you lock in to whatever it is that where your feet are, everything becomes magic. And I believe that is the principle the universe lives on and abides by, is the present moment will give you flow. And this is just a recent principle I've learned from my friend Corbin and partner Corbin Kafusi, which is flow and then you have ebb. There is not flow without ebb. There's not light without dark. And it's like expansion, contraction. Look at all of the same patterns that happen. You have beautiful babies. I have beautiful babies. We went through the moment where we were in the room for the first time having our first babies. And what happened? We were going, what the hell is going on? Why is that needle so damn big that's going into my wife's back that she's cringing over? And I'm over here turned around looking out the window at my car because I can't do it. And the truth in that journey is every time we have the expansion contraction, you have to recognize really early that the contraction, the pain of that baby being pushed out of that birth canal and life happening is a part of every process that we have to be involved with.
Hmm.
And so then I started latching on and I was like, oh, ebb and flow, ebb and flow. And the ebb, which is when my inbox hits 500 emails in one day, then I've got to pay a piper. I have to go ebb until 5 o'clock. And then I know that if I knock that stuff out, the universe will give me flow. It will give me new tasks and abilities to serve a higher community, to eradicate more evil, and to be a better steward. And quite honestly, if you follow that, and I call it the pendulum of life, is the ebb and flow. The flow is on the right side of the pendulum, the ebb is on the left. Eventually, you can make it so the pendulum isn't your grandma's clock. You know how it swings 12 inches back and forth? You can start stapling the ebb side of life at 6 inches and then at 3 inches. And so the pendulum's only swinging 3 inches instead of 12, where it starts to really kind of vibrate and you see what, scaling is. Scaling a business or wealth is nothing more than really small vibrations of winds happening in accordance with each other and being good at tax planning.
It'd be good at tax money. That's awesome, man. Oh yeah, I think that's probably my biggest struggle that I've ran into over this past, really just this past year of like, because I'm so bullish on just like trying to build this nest egg, trying to get into investing and it's yeah, it's hard like to be like what you said, like just be present where you're at. Because it's like when I'm on the doors and I feel guilty sometimes because I'm not with my kids or my wife. And then when I'm home, I feel guilty that I'm
Yep.
not recruiting or that I'm not doing XYZ. And it's like this
Yes.
constant
Yes.
guilt, dude. Like the dad guilt
Oh,
and the so but yeah, that's probably the biggest thing I think that has helped me, and I'm still again still working through it, but it's just like practicing probably just gratitude of like when I feel guilty, which I shouldn't feel guilty for working, right? And I shouldn't feel guilty for playing with my kids. It's just like it's like this stupid like
it's that
Satan
ego,
and the
brother.
angel. Yeah.
It's like
It's just like
it's that
constant.
ego. It's
Yeah, it's ego,
your
yeah.
ego. Dude. We're athletes, right? Like, let's be real. The ego. We played football of all sports, American
Yeah.
football, and let's just say that ego is tight. The only thing that I found that has actually allowed me to strangle the ego is to a 200-degree sauna for 20 minutes and a hatchet that I have to go and hatchet my own ice out of my ice bath for. And I go and sit in that for 6 minutes and I do that twice. That's the only thing that's got me to a place. Like you said, do I feel shame when I'm somewhere and I'm trying to be somewhere else? Do I feel guilt? Like you said, my biggest one, bro, just to be fully transparent, was with I was doing anything fun without my
Yeah,
wife or
dude.
son
Oh my
present, and it
god.
had to do with work. I felt like
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah. I still do, yeah.
And here's the thing. It's only a choice to actually say, I don't have to feel my body is regulating these emotions. This is not my spirit. And so quite honestly, if I can tell my body and I can tell my highest self, you don't have to worry. Everything is happening for me, not to me. Be present. You start, like you said, the first step. One of my close acquaintances and friends is Manti Te'o.
Mm, of
You've heard his
course,
story,
yeah.
right? How much shame and guilt and suffering he went through because of a falsified claim. He lived shame for 8+ years, and his journey helped me process through that grace is the key. Whether that's grace of Jesus or grace of the universe or grace for yourself, you give that grace and you make a decision that I won't feel those feelings anymore. You reconstruct your mind, and now it's like, hey, pressure makes diamonds, but too much pressure on a diamond actually is a problem. It disintegrates it. It actually ruins the diamond. It ruins the pearl. The longer the time, and so unless you cut it off and you pull it out at the right time, it's not helpful. It's degrading.
That's huge, man. Well, yeah, I feel like a lot of these guests like you that I have on here, it's almost like a therapy session. So we're gonna have
Bro,
to have you on at the end of the summer just to check back in and go over some more things. But dude, I seriously appreciate you coming on and being open and vulnerable and just like yeah, I just think what you're doing is awesome and what you're sharing with your business and wealth management. It's just such important stuff that again I wish I knew 5, 10 years ago because I yeah just huge information. That's awesome. So thank you.
Bro, happy to be on, and I love what you're doing with the Suffer on Purpose podcast. I would say essentially there's too many young guys that are seeing the lessons that you've learned from your first year and in your second, your third, and you have the ability to be a steward to correct the energy that is involved in the ecosystem of door to door. There are abundant people like you in the door to door industry. There are these groups, Sales Alchemy, the sales what was the one that you
Yeah,
went to,
sales therapist.
sales therapists like Doug
Yeah.
Cartwright. That guy was easily my hero the first, oh geez, bro, 3 years. I watched his video every day through Vivint. Doug Cartwright, closing pitch, door pitch, you name it, I had it memorized. And I always wondered, I'm like, okay, so that's Doug Cartwright I saw in the movie, and now I'm seeing Doug Cartwright 4 years later. Why is he at so much peace? And it's because of the mentality that you're bringing to the industry with very few guys. Sam Taggart as well. Sam is very abundant. Now, I think there's a key, and then I'll let you go just because of time. Appreciate your time. It's been the key to me is that you create more than you need so that you can dream, you can have headspace, and you can be abundant. Because when you get tight financially, you have to make decisions that sometimes have repercussions to you, your family, or others.
Mm.
So having that nest egg, I think you're on the right journey, right? Like that was my whole MO, was get a bunch of cash in a high yield savings account, because that was what I was told to do, and go and buy real estate and honestly be a martyr to the real estate as hard as you needed to be, because time is cheap. Well, now I've changed that. Time is the most expensive asset we freaking have. And I believe, Mason, there's a good chance me and you live forever. There's a really good chance that we have health advances in society that allow us to live much longer or forever. As I mentioned, it sounds a little bit crazy and a little bit offlandish, but I'm in this ecosystem of guys that are anti-aging, that are actually using drugs and performance enhancing things that are causing them to go backwards in time. And why? Well, it's because time is the greatest asset. And there's not a question. If I said to a man on his deathbed, I will give you one more year to live for the exchange of everything you own. And that does include everything you own, your trust, your wealth, your companies, but I'll give you one more year to live. What decision is he making? It will tell me everything about him. But I would say the people in my ecosystem are taking 1 year and they're going to go and live on the beach in Hawaii or Puerto Rico or Costa Rica with their family and soak up the last minutes they have.
Yeah.
So I love what you're doing, bro. It's needed. It's God's work, and it's an ecosystem that very few are tapping into like you are. So love being on, and thank you for the
Of
opportunity.
course, man. And yeah, we'll definitely connect soon. Appreciate you.
Okay, that'd be great, bro. Yeah, talk to you soon.